Welcome back to Byline. I'm Brian Lilly. Well, Turkey's president says Americans like to watch Muslim children die. The shocking comments came out of a widely publicized address in Istanbul this week, where he said, "Believe me, Americans don't like us. They look like friends, but they want us dead. They like seeing our children die. How long will we stand that fact?" Well, Turkey's supposed to be an ally of the Americans and of Canada and of the West. Isn't the first time the president has been critical of the West. Christian Whiten joins us now from Los Angeles. Christian, shocking comments, not the first weird comments that we've heard from Erdogan, but these ones especially shocking about a key NATO ally.
That's right, and you have to wonder what Turkey thinks it owes NATO in return for the defense guarantee. I mean, if Turkey's attacked, then the U.S., Canada, other NATO members are pledged to defend it. And yet it does things like this, says things like this, and also does other things like support Hamas with the terrorist group and support the Muslim Brotherhood, offering them harbor, basically, as other governments have gotten tough on them. So this is a NATO ally that really doesn't measure up to being an ally by any standard.
Is there any appetite to say, you know what, maybe it's time for Turkey and NATO to part ways?
You know, I wish there were. I think at least a suspension, and that would actually increase NATO's capability and coherence to say that, you know what, you have to do something in return. These states that act against our interests, these states that spend nothing on defense and yet expect other NATO members to come riding to their defense, you know, there has to be some sort of standard and some sort of ability to push people to correct behavior that's unhelpful. But no, unfortunately, that's the last thing. NATO's new General Secretary, a complete squish from Norway, who, frankly, is anti-American when he was Norway's prime minister. So nothing out of Brussels is going to be too promising on this.
Oh, shocker. A European that's anti-American. You know, and it's bizarre. Even when you've got a Democrat in the White House, these people still end up being anti-American at core. And that's what they always wanted, was someone like President Obama, someone more like them.
That's right. And unfortunately, you know, you wonder if Obama had tried harder diplomacy. You know, the White House always said he has great relations with Erdogan, but never, you know, there's no real evidence of that. And now we see quite the opposite. Also, there was this theory that Erdogan, like a lot of leaders in the Middle East, sort of had to pour some gasoline on the flames at times in order to remain in power. But Erdogan is actually quite popular and completely secure. He's completely marginalized the military and any opponents. So why is he doing these things? Why is he saying these things? It's not because he has to. It's because he actually believes them.
Well, let's look at a couple of other things that he believes. I want to read off two quotes back to back from President Erdogan. And this is about women. It says, "You cannot put women and men on equal footing. Is it against nature? They were created differently. Their nature is different. Their constitution's different." You know, I'd agree with that last part. Men and women are different, but to say women aren't equal, that's not really kosher in our society. He also said, "Our religion, Islam, has given a position to women." What is that position? It is the position of motherhood. This is a guy that we have to go defend if something happens? I'm not sure I like this idea.
It's crazy, and he's been off on other weird tangents lately, saying that Muslims discovered the Americas, and that should be in textbooks, even though there's no basis in fact for it. You know, culture matters, and I think a lot more people in the world are coming to realize that the divide in civilization isn't just the terrorists versus us. It's actually the Islamists versus everyone else. People who support unifying mosque and state and support the end result of terrorism, whether they're supporting the military part or the political part. And if you look at Erdogan, okay, he's not a terrorist, but he is an Islamist. He's part of the political organization, the political movement that is opposed to the West. So, you know, we can't snap our fingers and make him go away, but we can certainly stop making life easy for him.
So if they're opposed to the West, why did we allow Turkey into NATO?
You know, they used to be much more secular, and frankly, the military used to be a flywheel on Turkish democracy, whether it went too far left or too far to Islamism. But Erdogan put the final nail in that coffin, and a lot of the very senior members of the military are now in jail. So the notion that the military could come in, stage a coup, do what happened in Egypt, where the Islamists were booted out of power by the military, no longer so. And of course, Turkey came into NATO during the Cold War, when things were very different, when the enemy was very different. So those factors don't apply today. You know, we could also, even if we can't suspend them, do other things like close the NATO air base, the U.S. air base at Incirlik, which tends to be useless when the rubber meets the road, and move those forces elsewhere in NATO where they're wanted and needed.
So essentially, and we're almost out of time, but essentially it's useless because the Turks won't allow the the airspace around the base to be used for certain things?
So far, they haven't allowed it to strike ISIS, even though they say, oh, yeah, we want ISIS attacked and we want the U.S. to do that. So, you know, and also look back at the Iraq invasion, where they didn't allow the 4th Infantry Division to go through Turkey, increased risks on American forces, whether you agreed with the war or not. So they are just a bad ally. They have been since World War I, by and large, but they've gotten really out of hand.
All right, Christian Whiten, great talking to you as always.